For those holding out the last little bit of hope and waiting to feed me crow po' boy on this first Monday of December, I'm genuinely sorry to say reality has officially set in. Indeed, with the Saints' 21-14 loss to the Los Angeles Rams, the Christmas portion of the 2024 schedule is over. But there's much worse news, as Taysom Hill is lost for the season, and if you saw the injury, it quite possibly could be a career ender for a guy who will turn 35 years old next August. We'll talk about all that, and we'll even find a few positives in there somewhere, however deep they may be, next on the Dattitude Podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, New Orleans? And hello to my friends elsewhere, everywhere, out there who have lit their candles and said their goodbyes to the 2024 season. Even though I said 0.0%, even a tiny little part of me was hoping that I would have to change the name of this show and dye my hair a nice shiny gold. I mean, it would have been fun for everyone. I know. You couldn't. You were hoping. Some of you were hoping. Many of you were hoping. Some of you maybe not. Instead, you'll have to settle for Dattitude, episode number 316, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Monday, December the 2nd, 2024. I am your host, Jim Derry, 34 years on the New Orleans sports scene. So, yes, I have seen many seasons end like this, many of them long before Christmas. This is nothing new to me. Today, look, it's Mano E Monday. We get to cry on each other's shoulders. We get to, tell each other it'll be okay. We get to bitch about things. We get to air our grief. So really, it's kind of Festivus, right? Seinfeld. I mean, today will be our Festivus. December. I don't know what I know it's in December, but I know today will be the Saints Festivus. Okay, how about that? All right, you can be a part of the show. You know how to do it. Many of you have done so already. I'll show some comments in just a minute. If you're new to the show, you don't know how to do it, all you got to do is comment, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Type in your comment. We will show it on the screen. We show most comments, not all of them. We get to most of them. Again, especially on days like today when it's just you and me. Gabe is in the green room, but he's got some other things going on, so he probably will not be on the show today. We'll see how that goes. Maybe if we get down deep later on into LSU comments, maybe we'll go on. We'll see. At some point, I probably will talk about LSU just briefly. That'll be later. I got Derry's Dime is coming up. Also, we have some comments from Darren Rizzi, which I thought were interesting. And then we got Derek Carr talking about a little bit about the last drive and a lot about Taysom. So, look, the players, I think, were feeling the same kind of thing. When you see, at first, I don't think I realized how serious it was when he first got hit. Up there in the press box as high as we are. Oh, okay, somebody's hurt. Who is it? Oh, it's Taysom. You're like, okay, what's going on? He's not getting up. And then the next thing you know, they bring the card on. It was, we're going to get to it in Derry's Dime. And then after that, will probably be the first topic of conversation today. Brutal. Just absolutely brutal. By the way, if you have not already done so, if you're out there watching, please subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page. We had many over the weekend. I know a lot of you took part in the ticket giveaway portion. You were trying to win the tickets, and we did have a winner, and it was Roy Steyer, who said he had a great day of the game yesterday. Thanks to us here at Dattitude and, of course, John Pace, who provided those tickets. Nick Braden over at Evangeline Securities, our sponsor, says he's going to be able to provide some tickets for the future. So we will have more giveaways, whether it be Saints, whether it be maybe potentially some Tulane baseball he says he has. So we'll see what we have going forward, but we will definitely have another giveaway in the near future. Looking forward to doing that. It was Roy's first day back in the Dome since the renovations were complete, which the Saints could have pulled it off, but he had a great day overall. And that's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear, that you had a great day, honestly. Because look, it's a sad day, and whenever we lose, it's a different kind of show. I know some of you come on to hear me. I don't know what the right way to say it is. In ways go off, but I don't know that today is going to be a going off kind of day. I definitely have some prepared statements and some things to say about the whole Rizzi thing and where this team is and what they need to do. That's what Derry's time is going to be about today. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not anything I haven't said before, right? I mean, we all knew where this franchise had put themselves, what position they put themselves in. We're going to get to it in just a minute. I do want to get some of the comments first. Rocky, good morning. Charles, good morning. I tell it like it is, or at least the way that I think it is. That's for sure. My 34 years of experience pays off. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it. Man, I don't think Taysom, again, I'm going to get to this in a minute, but I don't know if it's just for the season, Charles. Now, you say the Rams own the Saints in the Dome. That is actually not true. Besides the no-call game, I did not know this until yesterday because I hadn't done enough research, I guess, before the game. Usually I have all these facts and I go into it, and I like to send some tweets out before a game with different things about a series or whatever. But I didn't realize this until yesterday, that the Saints, this was the first time, except for the no-call game, this is the first time in the regular season the Saints had lost to the Rams at home since 2007. 2007. Crazy. UBN, Taysom maybe done. I texted Zach that yesterday. When I got back in the car, I did the Saints Insider show yesterday, and UBN had sent me the link to the injury. We're going to get to the injury. If you haven't seen the injury, like if you haven't seen a close-up view of it, don't go look at it. I'm telling you right now, don't go look at it. It's gruesome. It is gruesome, man. So I think there's a decent chance he's done. I hope I'm wrong. Of course, look, I love you, Randall, but anyone who thinks this, I love when I have to repeat myself. Anyone who thinks this is a doofus, he's actually, you're not really pleased with the bullshit. I'm calling bullshit. No real fan is pleased with the loss, ever. I have a real problem. I do not believe that a fan of any football team is sitting there watching a game actively rooting for their team to lose. I cannot believe it. Maybe because it's just in me that I can't personally ever. I mean, maybe if my team was completely out of it the last week of the season and I had some huge bet that, like, I'm talking about big time bet, like I was going to win a knockout pool or something, maybe then. I can't truly believe that a real fan or someone who calls themselves a real fan can actively root for their team to lose after a game. Now, they may feel that way before a game, and they may feel that way kind of after a game. I can't believe that it happens during a game. I don't know how else to say this, but to say it the way that I've been saying it. You know what losing gets you? It gets you being a loser. Nothing else. A top 5 pick doesn't do jack crap for anybody. Sorry, it doesn't. You don't know if they're going to pick it right. You don't know if they're going to trade it. You don't know what they're going to get. Picking third, picking first, picking fifth, picking eighth doesn't make a difference. You got to get lucky anyway. You want to go through the last couple drafts? You want to look at Caleb Williams, who lost again this week, and just what a fashion to lose that game. You can blame it all on Eberflus if you want, and it's absolutely he's now fired and he deserves a share. As I'm going up before I even get to the dime. But Caleb Williams has a big part of that. And then he tries to deflect and say, well, I was trying to change the play. And how about you just snap the damn ball, moron? So that was the number one pick of last year's draft. That was worth a lot. You don't know if you're rooting for a top 5 pick, you're a dummy. Simple as that. If you would rather your team lose the rest of the way, you're a dummy. I might love you. If my mama came back from the dead right now and we started talking about what I missed while she was gone, and then the Saints came up and my dear mama came back from the dead and said, you know what, I hope the Saints lose the rest of that game so they get a top 5 pick, I'd call my mama a dummy. Makes no sense. There's my soapbox for the morning. I haven't even got to the dime yet. Gary, good morning. Welcome. Rainy Cajun, glad you're here. Of course. By the way, the official injury on Taysom is knee ligament. I'm not exactly sure which one. I'll just say this. I saw enough to know that, Gabe, you can find the exact one if you want, but I don't know. Douglas, good morning. Welcome. My friend John, welcome. Ryan says Festivus is December the 23rd. Well, not today, it ain't. It's December the 2nd today. The Pelicans and the Saints we ain't talking about the Pelicans today. They're done. I don't even think when the Pels were 3-20 back in Willie's first year or whatever the hell. I think they were 3. It might have been worse than that. It might have been 3-23. Something like that. I didn't even think then I said they were done. Now, done. Franchise is done. They need some changes. Okay, Gabe says he's getting an MRI today. Okay, so there you go. All right, we got some new comments. We got plenty of comments here. I'm going to get to all of you, especially you new people. I really appreciate you being a member of the Dattitude family. It's easy for you to do so. Again, just type in your comment. If you type in something like you hope the Saints lose the rest of the way, I'm definitely going to show it, and I'm not going to be kind to you. But by all means, type it in if you want. Please, feel free. And on that note, before we get to the rest of the show, let me tell you who would not type in, I hope the Saints lose the rest of the way. The people at Evangeline Securities. So let's continue the story about our friends, because the dream for the future always lives on with the people at Evangeline Securities. That is the truth. That's not something I'm just spewing. They indeed are a company that can help you decide if it's the right time to sell your family-run or privately held business. And just as importantly, they can help you figure out what that business is worth. That is the number one question. When you're trying to decide, is it time to retire? Am I too young? Am I ready to retire? Is this business in the right place to retire? Is the family going to be okay? Well, the first thing you got to do is contact my friends at Evangeline. They start by scheduling a complimentary valuation. And then if you decide to proceed, managing partners, Nick Braden, Ron Hemelt, and the folks at Evangeline, they will be there with you every step of the way. More on this later in the show, but in the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. Okay, plenty more comments to get to. I understand that. But as I do every Monday, stopped doing it for a little while, brought it back a month or a little longer than a month ago. That's 5 or 6 weeks ago. Brought back the dime. And this is basically the only script portion of this show. Okay, this is the portion where I think about my words, because when I read a comment, I ain't thinking about. I just tell you what I think. Sometimes I go back through the dime and I edit it and change it, and sometimes I don't touch a word. This is an instance where I wrote it and didn't touch a word. And here it is. The moment we all knew Down Deep would came at approximately 4:45 p.m. in the Caesars Superdome on Sunday, December the 1st, 2024. It was the moment Christmas ended and reality set back in. The Rams, who were shut out in the first half for the first time ever in the Sean McVay era, were getting the ball first in the second half following 30 minutes in which the Saints had chance after chance but could only muster 6 points. And any rational Saints fan knew the Rams could not be allowed to march down the field and take the lead after the Saints had missed so many opportunities to take command. However, that's exactly what happened. Running back Kyron Williams did exactly to the Saints what we said Friday that Alvin Kamara needed to do to the 30th ranked rushing defense. Williams for 4 yards. Williams for 1 yard. Williams for 10 yards. Williams for 8 yards. Rinse, repeat, lather, and Williams for a 4-yard touchdown. And just like that, it was 7-6. The abrupt end to Rizmas came 3 offensive plays later when the Saints went 3 and out, and you could just feel it was over. Sure, the Saints would not only come back to tie it at 14, but after they allowed another go-ahead and the eventual game-winning touchdown, more brutal reality set in when it was proven to all of us that Taysom Hill really is human. Again, if you haven't seen how he injured his knee, don't. It's that bad. It's bad enough to wonder, again, whether he'll ever suit up in a football uniform again. More on that coming in just a few moments. But then after some very questionable play calling inside the red zone, on 4th and 2, Derek Carr was pressured for about the 30th time and was hit as he threw. The ball fell to the turf. 21-14, game over, season over. What was left of the slight hopes for a miracle comeback were officially dashed. Meanwhile, people on social media are acting like if the Saints didn't have injuries, Rizzi would have led them to the promised land. What is it with Saints fanboys in reality? What do they have against reality? Regardless of whether this team could have found a way to win Sunday or not, they just aren't very good. They lost to a very mediocre Rams team we already told you is third worst in the NFL against the run, but yet scored just 1 touchdown with Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill for 58 minutes. During the second and third quarters combined, the Saints were outgained 286 yards to 90. In the fourth quarter alone, their defense allowed 14 points. The truth is, following a bye week, I had high hopes that Darren Rizzi would have this team fired up and ready to play inspired football. Instead, the Superdome crowd seemed as if it was still in a tryptophan coma and made little noise until the final drive. Oh, wait. That's because they started doing the wave while their team had the football trying to tie the score. Wonderful. Just insanely brilliant fans. It's not Rizzi's fault. There just isn't much about this team to get fired up over. If Miss Gale or anyone else who will play a role in making offseason decisions needs more proof that the Saints will wallow in mediocrity or whatever they're wallowing in now until massive changes are made, then they simply need to watch what happens in the next 2 games at home when there will be more people in the stands rooting on Jaden Daniels in 2 weeks and a preseason crowd in the penultimate week of the season against the Raiders when not a single soul will give a rat's ass whether the team in black and gold or the team in black and silver wins. I would love to have high hopes about where this team could potentially go. The truth is if they want to get back to even driving distance of where they were 4 or 5 years ago, when January 5th is over and the black and gold begin to ponder its future, it needs to do so with as clean a slate as possible. It starts at the top, and the mop needs to be used all the way to the bottom. Scrub that baby, scrub it. Otherwise, I will save this speech and use it again this time next year, and no one really wants to hear this again. And that's my dime. I mean, you don't want to hear the same thing again. We don't want to be in this same spot again next year. But unless this team makes major changes, that's where I fear this whole thing is going. Tell me I'm wrong. So in answer to your question, Brian Pearson, do I think Darren Rizzi is the new head coach next year? God, I pray the answer is no. He did some things yesterday that proved to me, and Zach and I kind of went back and forth in this because I know everybody loves the newfangled. I want a young coach, but I don't want a young coach that's going to be like Dan Campbell and just start going for it on 4th down, going for 2 all the time. You could tell in his mentality he was getting to that. Saints went for it on 4th down, first drive that they ended up scoring a field goal on. They went for it on 4th and 4 or 4th and 5 from the plus 48 or 47 or wherever they were. You don't go for it there. Now, they got it. And Zach says, see? Just like a lot of people would have. You know what my response is to that? Well, sometimes you can get away with cheating on your wife, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing. I mean, it doesn't make sense to do. So the answer, and I'm going on a tangent when I talk about Darren Rizzi, because Darren Rizzi did a lot of things yesterday that bother me. After a bye week, I said it in the dime. After a bye week, this team didn't come out with fire. I didn't see fire from this team like I saw the first 2 weeks that they played with him. So no. Ovide says, definitely need a new defensive coach. Good morning. I think it's more than that. I think they need a whole clean. I mean, I told you this already. A whole clean slate. Mario Martinez, too old, too slow, rebuild and find a coach next year, maybe. They are too old. They are too slow. They do need to rebuild. Jose Acevedo, new subscriber from Georgia. Your son attends Georgia and loves the show. Continue to keep it real. Thank you, Jose. Thank you for being a new member of the Dattitude family. I know I got some questions about the Pels and stuff in here. We may or may not even mention them later. We'll see. Rocky, O-line, 100%. That's where it starts. It starts in the trenches. Douglas says the way the Saints play, they're going to be giving away tickets to get fans to come to games. It'll be like the old days, right? The old joke is I left my Saints tickets on the dashboard. Somebody broke into my car and left 4 more. May get to that. Barry Ulay. Game lost in the first quarter. Saints had the ball. It wasn't 13 minutes. It was 14 minutes. The Saints had the ball 13 minutes and 58 seconds to be exact. The Rams had it 1 minute and 2 seconds and ran 3 plays. Saints led 3-0. So really, you could make an argument that Rizmus was over then. And that's what I'm talking about. You can't come out and you can't have that kind of success and score 3 points. You can't do something. Okay, that no one's ever done, and that stopped the Rams from scoring for an entire first half. Never been done in the Sean McVay era. You do that, but you only score 6 points. The over-under in this game was 49. I thought it was going to be, I predicted 36-30. And I got the spread almost right. I said 6-point win for the Rams. They won by 7. But I wasn't even close with the total. We talked about, and look, if you see on the left-hand side of the screen, if you're watching the podcast live, you can see it. And if you're listening after the fact, you can't see it. But I'll tell it to you. We said this had to be an Alvin Kamara kind of game. It was in a way. I mean, don't get me wrong, 112 rushing yards, that's a good number. But it was weird. It didn't feel like 112 yards. They didn't use them right. I just thought the offensive game plan was not good. I mean, Derek Carr completed 24 passes, okay? 184 yards. That's all he got was 184 yards. You can hate on Derek Carr if you want, and I don't see, at least not yet. I haven't got to the bottom of this comment stream yet. But you can blame, you can do your normal, I'm pissed at Derek Carr, whatever. But why was he checking it down? I know a lot of people like, check down Carr. You know why he was checking it down? Because he would get the ball. And you know how, and I brought this up in the Saints Insider yesterday. You know when you used to play touch football, it'd be 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. You got to throw the ball or you're down, right? Well, in the NFL, you hope you get to 2.5 Mississippi, right? Well, he couldn't even get to 2. Sometimes it was 1 Mississippi. You couldn't even get to the Ippy, and they were in his face. Can't do it, man. You can't do it. Ryan says at least they went down fighting. I'm like, yeah, they kind of went down fighting. The team has shown more heart under Rizzi. Great. Don't get me wrong. It's way more fun to watch with Rizzi as coach. Brian Cavett says, good morning to us, the Hoodats. He's done with the Saints. Taysom kept him watching, so he'll watch the after effects of this train wreck out of the corner of my eye. You're going to watch. Don't tell me you're not going to watch. Oh, here we go. I missed it. Derek Carr was horrible yesterday. What game were you watching? Ashley, I thank you for being a part of the Dattitude family, and I know I've seen you in here quite a bunch of times recently, but he was not horrible yesterday. Jerry, Derek Carr's the blame for that one. You're out of your mind. I love you, Jerry. You're out of your mind. You're not being real. You're being real in your own mind because there are so many people that just hate Derek Carr, again, because he's not Drew Brees. No one, and I mean no one, could have done anything with that O-line yesterday. Zach and I both said it, and I said it in the pregame. And you can go read my tweet on X before the game. No Eric McCoy spells a lots of trouble. This O-line is in shambles. And if you want to blame Derek Carr, then you ain't real. You ain't facing reality. And I hate to tell you this. I know I'm talking about changing this team from the studs up, and eventually Derek Carr will be part of that change. He'll have to be. But it ain't going to be next year, most likely. There isn't a quarterback on this roster underneath Carr that's worth a damn. Let's be real. We've seen them both already. I'm not getting into the whole thing already. M. Nelson, Carr sucks. You're living in your own fantasy world, and your fantasy is a miserable existence. Just telling you. You're if you're blaming this crap on Derek Carr, you're living in a miserable existence. We saw how you think this team is bad. I mean, who's he throwing it to? Some dude named Austin. I know his first name. So I think is it Kevin or Keith? I don't even know. Who cares? Who cares? That's who he's throwing to yesterday. He's got Alvin Kamara and a whole bunch. He's got Marquez Valdez-Scantling is his number one receiver right now, who was on the scrap heap until a few weeks ago. And they plucked him off, and he's like looking like, oh, he's okay. He's looking okay because nobody else wanted him because he couldn't play for anyone else. Mal, dude, Derek Carr is one of the most losing quarterbacks of all time. Multiple coaches, schemes, and teams. He's the common denominator. Okay. What about before Carr came here? Were they winning before he got here? No. They stopped winning when Drew Brees left. The common denominator is a lot higher than Derek Carr. A lot higher. I don't know. First of all, M. Nelson, Cam Ward is going to look good in black and gold. You cray-cray if you think this team's getting Cam Ward. First of all, I'm not a fan of Cam Ward's anyway, what I've seen the past few weeks. Second of all, he's going a lot higher than where the Saints are going to draft. He'll be gone before the Saints draft. The Saints don't draft quarterbacks. Al Pivick. The Saints need an offensive-minded coach. Joe Brady's Bills have scored 30 points or more in the last 6 games. Look, I'm not saying I completely agree with what you're saying as far as the offensive-minded head coach. I'm not 100% sure it's Joe Brady. I don't know if it's maybe. But is Joe Brady going to want this job? This job's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard sell. I got to be honest. I mean, first of all, the quandary that this team is with the salary cap is bad enough. But they're going to have to make some other changes. Charles says, good dime, spot on. Thank you. Rocky says, Loomis has gone into hiding since DA was fired. Something is going on there. Nah, that's just who he is. I mean, let's be real. How often do you really hear from Mickey Loomis during a season? I don't know. Look, again, we're going to get to some more comments in a minute. I do want to get to some of our clips. We got, normally I play Rizzi first, but I do want to talk about Taysom a little bit. And since y'all hate Derek Carr so much, I'm going to play Derek Carr's clip first. And I'm doing it because there was an outpouring of love for Taysom Hill. And, you know, it's funny how fans pick and choose in this new world we live in. I really believe that social media has just ruined a sports fan. I mean, it's so easy to like compound hate on someone for no apparent reason. You just come up with reasons to hate when you're not hating the right things. I mean, first of all, hate is just a dumb word anyway. But that's what you're doing. You're hating on Derek Carr. It's absurd. But to listen to what he said yesterday about trying to come down and win the game, he's not going to talk bad about his offensive line. So that's the first part of this clip. And then the second part of the clip is the players and the outpouring of love for Taysom Hill. It's all in one clip here. It's 1 minute and 16 seconds. We'll see you on the other side.
We're going to score. Let's go for the win. And we didn't get that opportunity to see if we were going to do it. But it's hard to lose a game that way. I just wish I just could have done more for my teammates. I always feel that way after a loss, and this one hurts. Especially when you're that close.
How tough was it to lose Taysom was early on that job?
That's the worst. I don't know anything. Y'all probably know more than me. But just as a brother, as a friend, because it's bigger than football at that moment. His family, his kids, his wife, everybody, and that your heart just breaks. You got guys, Coach McVay, heartbroken for him. Stafford, walks up talking to me, heartbroken for him. In that moment, it kind of pauses the game part of it and the competitiveness, and you feel for someone especially like that. But I love how our fans treated him, and I would expect nothing less from our fans. When one of our guys goes down, they've been great. To support our guys, whether it's going great or not. The way they treat him, that made me happy for him to have that moment.
That's what it is. We got a couple people in the chat saying there's breaking news on Taysom. Gabe is looking it up. ESPN supposedly is confirming that Taysom Hill's out for the rest of the season. Breaking news. I don't think we needed to get breaking news on that. I'd already written him off for the season. Oh boy. Anyway, some other things here. Let's see. Ray says if anyone can come back from that injury, Taysom can. You're right, I guess. But again, when you're talking about a guy who's going to be 35 years old in August, when the season starts again, and we're going to need to see exactly what ligament it is. Schefter confirmed it, Gabe says. We're going to need to see exactly what ligament it is, because if it's an ACL, that's a 10-month recovery process for even the younger players. So an ACL means that he wouldn't be ready. It's December. So he wouldn't be ready until the beginning of October. Most likely. Would he come back? Maybe. But you're definitely talking about someone who, if it's an ACL, he's not coming, he won't be ready for a season opener next year. That's what it is. Then you start have to, I agree with you. If anyone can do it, it's him. But I just got to say, if how hard do you want to work to come back from something like that at that age when you probably only got 1, maybe 2 years left? Charles says maybe one final year, maybe won't be the same. Might as well just retire. I'm not Taysom Hill, so I'm not going to tell him. I wouldn't tell anyone to retire. So I don't know. Jerry wishing Taysom Hill a speedy recovery, come back stronger. Yeah, look, again, he's the kind of guy that could do it. So if you want someone to come back, it would be him. But this is just kind of a microcosm of where this team is, okay? Microcosm. Going back to Carr, And you bring up a good point, Douglas. This is actually worth talking about, and it's a logical comment when you're talking about why you don't want Carr. Don't just hate Carr because you hate Carr, okay? Give me receipts. Give me reasons. Not because, he's a loser. He's lost because he's played on some horrendous teams. And I almost blame him for coming here because he should have seen the writing on the wall. Douglas writes, and the amount of money that they're paying Carr for production not equaling out. I don't necessarily agree with you, but I at least think that that's a fair point to make. But here's the thing, Douglas, when you're talking about money and where his money ranks, and I don't know exactly, maybe you can look this up, maybe you can, but where his money ranks among quarterback salaries at the moment, I would say it's probably bottom of the top 10 is my guess. And you're talking about a quarterback, and we've had this argument. You could say he's not top 10. Okay, even if I agree with you that he's not top 10, which I don't, because I think he's like 10th or 11th, somewhere around there. And it's proven that the Saints offense has been somewhere between 8 and 12 ever since he's got here because of him. What happened when he left? When he wasn't there? He stunk. The Saints stunk. They can't win without him. Can they go out and get someone else that's going to be the future of this franchise? They should. They absolutely should. This is not a good year for quarterbacks in the draft anyway. Had this been going into last year and it looks like, okay, let's say the Saints finish. I've been saying 7-10 the whole way. I'm still going to say 7-10, although I think it's looking more like probably 6-11. Okay. Let's say 6-11. And Gabe's been talking about this. 17th in salary. 17th among quarterbacks in salary. So to me, that's a bargain. You may hate Derek Carr. You can hate him all you want. But if you're lining up quarterback salaries and he's 17th, there is zero question, and I mean zero question, that he is better in the top 17 of quarterbacks. No question. No question. Apathy says that Carr needs everything perfect to excel. He gets rattled so fast. You hit him a couple times and he melts like butter in Louisiana summer. I couldn't disagree more. If that were true, he would have melted in the first quarter yesterday because he got hit on almost every single play. Almost every single play. He still completed 24 of 37 passes. Is that great? It's okay. The yardage kind of stinks. But when you get hit on every single play, what is he supposed to do? What do you want him to do? The Saints have the worst offensive line in football. I don't even think it's close. They were worse before they lost Eric McCoy, in my opinion. You keep blaming the wrong person, the wrong people. You keep blaming the wrong people. Uncle Big Nick says, what if fans blame the players for the money that they get paid? The teams pay them. I know I take more than I'm worth if someone wants to pay me. Hell yeah, you would. And it's just, going back to Douglas's comments, I think it's a valid point. I understand why you feel that way. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking that question. But just to come out and say, Derek Carr sucks, he needs to go, he's a loser, but you don't know what you're talking about. Look at Kirk Cousins, okay? Remember how 4 or 5 weeks ago, the whole first half of the season, I had so many people coming into this chat. Excuse me. So many people coming into this chat and screaming about how Kirk Cousins is better than Derek Carr. Except he isn't. Threw 4 interceptions yesterday. Falcons had no business losing that game yesterday. But they did. Now they're 6-6. I don't know, man. There's so much this team needed to do. But I'm going to go back to yesterday. It wasn't Carr. It was the lack of, excuse me, the lack of preparedness and ready to be ready. I blame that on Rizzi. You're great in your first game, and we talked about it, about how interim coaches and the things wear off. Saints weren't ready yesterday. What did he have to say about it? 1 minute and 14 seconds from Darren Rizzi. We'll be back on the other side.
Obviously disappointing. Really my biggest takeaway probably from this game is just, we did in our last, especially in the last game, we didn't finish. We didn't finish drives. We didn't finish out the game. We didn't finish the second half very well. And that's the things we've been doing the last couple of games. And so, again, you're going to be in football games, and these one-score games against good football teams at home. You got to be able to finish off, and so that's something we didn't do very well today. We did a lot of things in the game that we set out to do, and play the game in a lot of ways that we wanted to, but we didn't execute in crunch time. Listen, like any game that you lose, the guys are pissed off because they know that there was one there in our grasp that we didn't get. And unfortunately, we've had a few of those this year that we get down into this fourth quarter and these one-score games. And I think now overall we're 1-4 in one-score games. And if you're going to make the postseason in this league and be successful and win your division, all those things, the bottom line is you got to win one-score games. So that's just the bottom line. And so. I think the mood in the locker room is guys are still confident in what we're doing, but again, are disappointed that we lost, and they should be.
Yeah, they're disappointed. They should be, is right. There's people saying, I'm not going to show all the hater comments at this point about Carr. I'm one of one. You're wrong. There's a lot of people out there who think Carr is a good enough quarterback to lead this. Is he a Super Bowl winning quarterback? I don't know. Could he ever win a Super Bowl with the right? If Derek Carr played for the Lions, I think the Lions would be better. Truly believe that. If Derek Carr, with this Saints team from day one, like if you go back to the beginning of the season, you give Derek Carr Detroit's O-line with what we had to start the season, and I'm talking about Olave and Shaheed and what this team had, I think this is a 10, 11, 12-win team. If you give the Saints Detroit's offensive line. That's how important an offensive line is to me. As a lot of people are saying here, you think I'm the only one taking up for Derek Carr? No, Brian says Carr's as tough as a $2 steak. He is. A lot of drops, says Ray Ibarra. So did Ryan Shano say the same thing? Kamara had a couple of big drops. He did. So if his stats are, instead of 24 of 37, let's make him 27 of 37 for 230 yards with 2 touchdowns, and they win the game, and let's say they don't get a 2-point conversion because they make a bad play call. Let's say they tie it up, it's 21-20, they go for 2 because they would have gone for 2. They've said this. They would have gone for 2, and let's say they pitched it to Kamara because that was the play call, and they don't get it and they get stuffed. You still feel the same way about Carr? No. You're just coming out about Carr. The only time you losers who hate Carr come out and say bad stuff about Carr is when they lose. It's the only time. And the only time they win is with Derek Carr. And you guys talking about we need playmakers. Remember when Spencer Rattler was going to be the savior? Oh, that lasted a long time. Oh, it was only 3 games. He stinks. They got their asses kicked when he played. Todd says not a great quarterback available when we pick in the first round. Won't be able to pay them anyway. Well, I mean, you will be able to pay him because whoever you draft in the first round, it's not the same now. You're kind of settled into wherever you draft. That's what they get paid. So you have to pay them whatever. But the point is, this is not a draft class that's chock full with quarterbacks. In fact, it's one of the worst quarterback drafts I've seen in a long time. Other than Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and I mean, I'm not a fan of any of these guys that are going to become Quinn Ewers. Is he coming out? I don't know. I don't think he's a senior. I'm not sure if he's coming out or not. I don't know what the deal. I think he's coming out, right? Yeah. Anyway, Who else? Man, I don't think Nussmeier's coming out. Not that he should anyway. I'm not getting into that today. John Pace. Kamara dropped a bunch of passes. Carr played great considering all the pressure. Ray Ibarra says exactly what I've been saying. Carr will be a good bridge quarterback for one more season. I agree wholeheartedly. And here's what I root for. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think Carr's going to be here one more year, and he's going to be the bridge to whoever the Saints draft or get in free agency or whatever they're looking for the future of this team. Whoever the next offensive coordinator is going to be, and who that person or that coach and offensive, because again, we hope the next coach is an offensive-minded coach. And like Sean Payton had the right to go find his quarterback, whoever the next coach is should find the right to go get his quarterback, whoever that is. I think we know it's not going to be Rizzi. Oh, God, we hope. No, again, no offense to Darren Rizzi whatsoever. I love what he's been able to do. And the inspired play that this team had, at least in the first two games, not as much yesterday. I wish they would have made a move before this season, or at least when they got into the season and it was clear that Dennis Allen wasn't going to. I mean, they should have made this move earlier. Who knows? Maybe they could have made something this season. I don't know. So I'm not trying to hate on Darren Rizzi. I'm really not. Can he be a head coach in this league one day? I don't know. Maybe. But this team needs so many changes. So that's what Derek Carr is. Derek Carr is a bridge to the future. And when he leaves here in New Orleans, and he'll be, 34 years old or 35 years old, like Taysom Hill is, he'll still have 3, 4, or 5 years left. And I hope, and if I could sit down with Derek Carr and say, what do I know? I'm just a guy who's been covering sports for 34 years. I mean, I've played him on a very small scale. So my opinion doesn't really mean jack squat to someone who's been in the NFL for 11 years. But if I did sit down and he talked to him and he asked me what I thought, I'd say, make sure you pick a team that has a fantastic offensive line, like top 5, top 7 offensive line, and a team that you feel is going to win. Now, I think when he came here, he probably felt that this team was going to win, but he disregarded where they were with the guys that were going to protect him. Kirk Cousins is not better than Derek Carr, Joshua Marks. You are correct, sir. Kendall Mitchell just said that about Kirk Cousins. John Pace, we talked about this already. Draft O-line again and again. And if that's, if the Saints, first of all, I hope the Saints take that first round pick. And if it's somewhere around 8th or 10th or wherever it is, I hope they trade down. Trade down to the bottom of the first round or maybe the 20th range or whatever, and get yourself extra picks. Maybe you get a first rounder for 2026 and a second rounder in 2025. If you can swap places with somebody like 10 spots, get a second rounder in 2025, take their first rounder in 2025, and then get another first rounder in 2026. You draft an O-lineman with your 20th pick or 18th pick or whatever it is. And maybe you draft another O-lineman in the second round. Starts in the trenches. And then you think about defensive line. You're not even thinking about quarterback, in my opinion, next year to draft. Excuse me. There are so many. You can't do anything, no matter how good your skill players are, if you can't be good in the trenches. You take a team like the 49ers. Their offensive line, they weren't good. They weren't very good last year. They were okay. They were like in the 20th range, but they could overcome it because they were good on the other side of the ball in the trenches. Their defense would get the ball back for their offense. And 20th is not 32nd because the Saints have been consistently going down and down and down offensive line-wise since Sean Payton left. They were 28th last year, according to PFF. They're dead last. It's not even close this year. Just saying. You are so wrong, man. You want to go back and look at the rankings? Carr had a good O-line a few years in Oakland. He never had a good O-line. And this is a fact. You can go back and look at the rankings. The best ranking of an offensive line that he's ever had in his entire 11-year career ever is 20th. And it was the year that the Raiders went to the playoffs and lost in the first round. Go back and look at it. Ray says it's right. Fans are looking for an excuse to blame Carr when it's the whole team. The defense can't stop an old lady in a wheelchair running the football. They couldn't yesterday. And I was joking, sitting next to Ross Jackson yesterday. And Blake Corum started the game for the Rams. I don't know if Kyron Williams had gotten the doghouse or whatever. But we're making jokes about Kyron Williams hadn't done jack squat for like the last however many weeks, maybe the whole season, really. So they gave Blake Corum a chance, and Blake Corum was running the football pretty well. Blake Corum hadn't done anything all year. Then Kyron Williams came back in, hadn't done anything all year. 15 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown. Saints defense is old. They've continued to get worse and worse and worse. And, you know, we could talk about how Dennis Allen's a great defensive coordinator, and I'm starting to wonder. He's allowed this defense to become old like this. It keeps making personnel decisions, or at least someone's making personnel decisions. That's just not working for this team. How many times did you say Chase Young yesterday? $13 million. How many times did you say Chase Young yesterday? I don't know, man. It wasn't bunch. Carmen Trejo loves Derek Carr. Ray Barra says, yep, trade back. Turbo Duran says, how about the Saints defense? They can't stop a nosebleed 24/7. You can't win the games in the NFL like that. 100%. And I know they only gave up 21 points yesterday. But again, you go back to what I said in the dime, and a stat that stuck out. And there's one stat I didn't even give you. So the Saints, first quarter, had the ball for 13 minutes and 58 seconds. Rams 102. Second quarter and third quarters combined, the Rams outgained the Saints 268 yards in 2 quarters. 268 yards to 90. And then scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. Although that first touchdown was the beginning of, it was the first play of the fourth quarter. So really, in all intents and purposes, they scored 14 points in the third quarter. Came out of the locker room. Changed. Turbo also says, and he's right, Saints offensive line is a joke. What do you want the quarterback to do if he has no time in the pocket? The offensive line is getting bullied. It was like this for Carr. And it's been like this all season long. There were a couple times he got hit yesterday, and I'm not exaggerating. You can go back and look at it again if you want. A couple times he got hit. Once in the second quarter, I believe, he got hit so hard, I'm like, wow, I don't know if he's going to get up. And he got right back up. Dude's tough as nails. Y'all keep talking about how he can't handle pressure. I've never seen someone get hit like this and just get right back up. I mean, it's true. Ray says no gap discipline. Jason Benson, these contract restructures are what's keeping these old guys here. There's no doubt about it. You can't keep churning things over and over and over again, kicking the can. You may not like it. I mean, you may not like getting rid of somebody that you love, but sometimes you gotta. You think about if the Saints would have, again, I've said this a bunch of times before. Drew Brees had earned the right to leave, but think of how things might have been different. We would have made this franchise different. Drew Brees had left 2 years sooner, and Tom Brady came here and won a Super Bowl. Would Sean Payton have been as in a rush to leave? I don't know, man. Would players have been less likely to come here? Absolutely not. Of course not. Rocky says Mickey the can kicker. It's not just Mickey that's doing it. Tom and Wendy Burris, this should be a very boring draft coming up. All line. Amen. It's true. Ryan Shano says Carr gets destroyed every week. keeps getting up, never puts the blame on his teammates, ever. He never does that. Saints are lucky to have him. When have you ever seen, I mean, all that stuff last year when he got mad at people, and you haven't seen that this year. I joked the whole keep it positive, brother thing. He hasn't really done any of that this year. I'm going to say this again. I get why people don't like him. I understand it. But to blame him for where this team is right now is silly. You want to rank the reasons why this team stinks? You can start way higher than Carr. By the time you get to Carr, you'll be done. I mean, you'll be out of breath. You won't have any more words to say. Stuff's way beyond Derek Carr. Again, how about a guy like Chase Young, $13 million, and who looks like, I mean, you want to talk about a waste of money. Waste of money. Cameron Jordan is, I mean, yesterday you look at who the Saints brought in for post-game press conferences. Usually they would bring in someone like Tyrann Mathieu, but he got hurt, so they didn't have anyone else to bring in. Who'd they bring in on defense? I don't know why they didn't bring in someone like Pete Werner, who had 8 tackles yesterday. Monty had 9. No, they bring in Cam Jordan to say what? I didn't put that in here. I love Cam Jordan, man. Cam Jordan's like Drew Brees in the fact of, I don't want to say unfortunately, but there are some players, in my opinion, that retire when they're ready. They've earned that right. And Cam Jordan has earned that right. But man, I hope it's after this year, because he's wasting a roster spot in cap space. Apathy says, need a whole new defensive line. At least 2 315, 330-pound run stuffing defensive tackles. Need a 250-pound speed demon pass rushing linebacker on a 3rd and long, and need another 2 more hits on the O-line. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to need and pay for. That's a lot of stuff. Charles says I'm keeping it real. Look, I know we lose people sometimes. We lose subscribers because people don't want to hear me want to talk about reality. They want me to just talk about the positive. They want me to be on their side. They want me to say, Derek Carr sucks. You know how many more people I could probably get listening to this show if I just said, yeah, Derek Carr sucks. Mickey Loomis sucks. Everybody sucks. I tell you the way that I think that it is. It is what it is. Rocky says, do I think Kubiak is gone with the new changes that should come? If you get a new head coach, you're probably going to get a new offensive coordinator. And especially if you get an offensive coordinator as a head coach who's going to call his own plays. My friend Terrence says he's too disappointed to share his thoughts today. I get it, man. I get it. Jerry says, it's good to love your favorite players, but it's time to cut ties with them and go younger, especially on defense and offense. And Jerry, that really goes with the theme of you gotta tear down from the studs up, right? And it's not just the players. That's why, look, as much as I like Derek Carr and I think he can win, I don't think he's ever going to win with his team, because I don't think they're going to win next year. And I think next year is the last year that he's here. I think that you need to quote Ronnie Lamarck, bridge the gap. Right? You got to bridge the gap. And that's what he's going to do. Maybe they'll bring in somebody young next year. We see how that's worked out. If they're going to bring in someone young, though, to me, don't waste a draft pick. Stop drafting quarterbacks. If you draft a quarterback after the 3rd round, in my opinion, you're just wasting time. You're just wasting time. And I'm not bashing on Spencer Rattler. I'm talking about anybody right now. For this future of this franchise. You're not good. You're not smarter than a 5th grader. Again. I mean, Gardner Minshew, who's hurt right now, he's done. But Brock Purdy, who was also hurt. I mean, those are the guys. Those are the only 2 guys who are starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now who were drafted after the 4th round. There are a couple that were drafted in the 4th round. One of them's Kirk Cousins. He's not looking too good right now. Just saying. Just saying. Brian says it's like a parent sometimes. You have to make the hard decisions, unpopular as it might be. Needs to be done. Sometimes it does. Ovide, you bring up a point that I talked about yesterday in the Insider Show. I got to say, when I said I was going to find something positive to talk about in this show, Brian Brisset, I was wrong about Brian Brisset. When the Saints drafted him, I was upset about that. And the reason why I was upset is not because of Brian Brisset, but it was because I thought the Saints needed an offensive lineman there. And upset's not the right word. I was way more upset when they picked Foskey in the next round. But Brian Brisset has turned out, at least to me, if you want to pick one player, the player who's improved most from last year to this year, I think it's Brian Brisset. I think he is a stalwart in the interior of this defensive line for years to come. He's a guy you want him to be in black and gold. He's been fantastic. And I can't wait to see what he can do going forward. So he's one. Remember I said many weeks ago, what's the over-under of players on this current roster that will be here at the start of the 2027 season, which is next season, the season after, and then the start of the 2027 season. I got the over-under of current players on 2027 roster at 9.5. And I think it's going to be anywhere from 8 to 12. That's why I say 9.5. Brian Brisset is absolutely one of those guys. Rocky says Joe Brady may have interest, but I don't know. But he doesn't know if he's the answer. Look, we're going to be talking about a lot about potential coaches going forward. I don't know if today's necessarily the day. Maybe it is. I mean, we're going to start talking about it because the season's over. Any little mini chance is gone now. 4-8. I mean, theoretically, if the Saints go 9-8, but you got to remember, I know there are probably still a couple stragglers who are open. But if you look at the standings, the Saints might as well be 3-9 because they're going to lose any tiebreaker to Atlanta and Tampa Bay. So they're essentially 3 games back with 5 to go. If the Saints went 9-8 and won the rest of their games, I still don't think they'd make it. They'd have a very slight chance to make it. And that's with the fact that I don't think they're going to win. I mean, you tell me that they're going to win those next 3 games. Okay, maybe they'll win next week. They're 5-point favorites at New York. The Giants are a major mess. Brian Daboll is counting his time. But then after that, you think the Saints are going to stop Jayden Daniels? What about Monday night, December 23rd at Green Bay? Yikes. Yikes. Jason Benson says Brisset is a beast. He is a defensive mainstay, says Rocky. Brian says O-line, D-line, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, safety, cornerback. What position does he? I mean, honestly, yeah, you got a point. Some of those positions I'll probably address for agency. But again, you're not going to have money. Not going to have a lot of it anyway. Turbo's right, too. The haters out there, hate to tell you, I think there's a 90% chance. I'm not going to say 100. There's a 90 because there are ways to work around. If you really wanted to get rid of Derek Carr, there are ways around it. I don't know. Rocky says 8 players will be on this roster, right? 8 players currently on this roster will be on the 2027 opening day roster. Apathy says, dear God, if the Saints hire John Gruden, he's going to go drink 7 monsoons at Portico to drown out this. Man, you're going to be sick the next day. I had 2 once, and that's when I was young. I had 2 monsoons once. I don't even know the crap that I was spewing. Not something I would want to say on the show, probably. Adam Varner is here. Sorry, just got on. Derek Carr was not the issue. Had absolutely no answer for the running back. Really couldn't do anything on offense. That's just yesterday. Let's see. Jason Benson said he missed the first half of it today. Are we over Rizzi now? Well, when we're done, Jason, you go back and listen to my dime. And the dime is basically all about when the Rizzi effect ended. When Rizmas ended. I said it was Rizmas ended at about 4:45 Central Time yesterday afternoon. So yes. I mean, I don't necessarily think that, Rizzi could be a coach maybe someday, just not here. That's not what the Saints need to. They got a lot of stuff to do. All right, we're going to start wrapping things up here. We're going to talk more about this Wednesday. Don't know if we'll have a guest or not. It's kind of playing it by ear these days. I'm not sure I want a guest. I kind of like it when it's just us talking. We had some new people in here today. I hope you come back on Wednesday and we could talk some more. That's what the show is kind of evolved into. It's evolved into me talking to you. Gabe couldn't come on today. He's got some other things going on outside of the pod. And so he was back there for about half the show and he had to jet. I'm pretty sure he'll be back Wednesday. But again, we will see what's going to come on. LSU, I said I would talk about them, and there were a couple comments in the chat about it. I know 8-4 sucks for many of you, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, 37-17 over Oklahoma. We told you Oklahoma wasn't any good. I mean, if we would have had our bets last week, we did not have time to do a bet show last week because of Thanksgiving. But LSU -6 would have been my number one best bet last week. I told you that on the show. I thought they would come out, play inspired football. Garrett Nussmeier, except for one fumble, was outstanding. And the Tigers, I think, are going in the right direction. Remember, I'm going to say this about Nussmeier and even to you Kelly haters. Remember when Joe Burrow came here and he was starting, and you're like, who's starting? Joe who? Joe Burrow. Who's this guy? I know I did. And he played that first year, and they're just okay. They got crushed by Alabama at home. They stunk. And then the next year, they had the best team that ever played college football, in my opinion. Jane Daniels. Brought this dude in from Kelly's bringing in this dude from Arizona State. Who's this guy? And I watched him the first year. I'm like, he's pretty good. He was better than Joe Burrow was his first year. It wasn't great, but he was definitely better than Joe Burrow in his first year. And then what happened in the second year? Win the Heisman Trophy. Is that going to happen with Nussmeier next year? I doubt it. I mean, to say that someone's going to win a Heisman Trophy is going way out on a limb. Not a limb that I'm ready to go out on. But if Garrett Nussmeier stays, then he may not even stay. I mean, he may go to the draft. But if he were to stay, especially now that Underwood's gone, which was all about money, by the way, had nothing to do with Brian Kelly. Nothing. But if he stays, he's going to get better. Even winning over Uncle Big Nick. Still don't like the Nuss turnovers. I don't either. But he's winning them over. The dude's got moxie, man. Again, he does turn it over too much. I mean, that's the biggest difference between him and Jane Daniels and Joe Burrow, and the reason why I don't think he'll ever win a Heisman. I'll say ever. I mean, he's only going to come back for one more year. But as Nick says, he is a tough SOB. He's got to cut. If he can cut those interceptions in half, man. I just think LSU is in a position because if you look at this defense, okay, that we were just talking about how terrible it was from day one this season against USC. They weren't good. And you go into the season, they got a little bit better, I thought, as they went along. I didn't think they played well against Florida. But I don't think there's any question that this defense has gotten better from week one to now. A lot better. And if they continue to get better next year, and they're going to replace some of these offensive linemen, and they can bring in skill players, and they can hit the transfer portal. I know that's a lot of ifs, but that's a lot easier to fill when you're in LSU in college football than it is when you're talking about the NFL. It's way harder to fill multiple needs in the NFL at one time than it is in college football, especially when you're a team like LSU, that I don't think is that far away from being a playoff team. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, in grand scheme of things, now I was told, I was given conflicting reports. Had LSU beaten Florida and finished 9-3 instead of 8-4, from what I understand, LSU would have been going to the SEC championship. Now, again, I'm getting conflicting reports that may or may not be true. But if it were true, and LSU had won that game, which they just didn't, they didn't play well, deserved to lose. I'm not making excuses for them. But just think, LSU could be in the SEC championship game. Would they beat Texas? Probably not. But honestly, who this year in college football, and we're definitely, as this show starts going well into December, and we start talking about postseason football for both college football and the NFL, I got to be honest with you, and I'm going to give you a heads up now. This show is not going to be all about the Saints anymore, okay? This show is going to start turning towards national talk like we kind of did with Bayou Bets before. We're going to look more and talk more about the college football playoff. We're going to talk more about the potential NFL playoffs, especially with the Super Bowl being here this year, and what we think could happen. Excuse me. So that's kind of where we're going with the show going forward. And we have plenty to talk about. But I'm just thinking that LSU, yeah, Nick Haskell, where are all the people that said Tulane could beat LSU? Yeah, they're long gone, dude. They're long gone. Long gone. I'll just say this real quick, too, before we wrap it up for today. I see these. This is why polls are stupid. Okay. I always hated, I've had to participate in a lot of polls throughout my career. I didn't like doing them. I did them because I was asked to by people I didn't really want to say no to. And I thought it was important to them and whatever. And I did certain polls. Brian says he's out when I talk basketball. Now we will at some point, Brian. And I get it. Even in those shows, we'll probably talk partly Saints in some of them. But polls are so stupid. Okay. You got a poll this week where Army is number 24 and Memphis is number 25. I'm going to say the same thing about Army and Memphis that I'm going to say about Tulane. And it's no offense to Tulane. I don't mean it as an offense. I really don't. But realistically, what would LSU do if they played Memphis or Army? Or even Syracuse that beat Miami? I get it. But realistically, what would LSU do with those teams? Well, I don't even count Syracuse. LSU would, I think most rational, sane, normal fans, I know Vegas would have LSU as a favorite. Even if it was at Memphis, LSU would be about a 7-point favorite, maybe more than that. At Army, they'd probably be like a 10 or an 11-point favorite. So what are polls for? Because I don't think even, I love my friend Garland Gillen, and I appreciate him for asking me on the show all the time. Just saying. What would he make a line of Memphis or Army against LSU? I guarantee you would have LSU as a favorite. So why are we voting for these teams ahead of an LSU? Douglas says, talk more about teams like Ohio State and Penn State being ranked so high at the beginning of the season, play weak schedules and play each other. The loser will move down one spot. Yeah. Why is Ohio State going to be, I still see them like number 7. Or they in the, I think that's what they were in the AP poll yesterday. They were like 7th. You lost to Michigan. Michigan is not good. Yeah, they're good in the trenches, which goes to show you, by the way, if you're good in the trenches, you can win the occasional game, even if you have a crappy quarterback. Ohio State lost the horseshoe on their home turf for the 4th straight year to Michigan. They only dropped 7th. What's that about? I don't know, man. I hate polls. They're just stupid. They're really meaningless. Polls are so meaningless. Charles, can we stop letting more teams in the SEC? Or you can stop letting them in if you stop paying them. Bringing in money. Bringing in money. All right. Well, Monday Night Football tonight. Oh, I'm sure y'all can't wait for this one. Sean Payton against Jameis Winston. Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. Woo! Exciting stuff. Didn't even make a slide for it. Don't care. And you're right. Preseason college football is the dumbest thing ever. But people soak it up because they can't wait. Brian says he thinks Tulane will be a 17-point underdog at LSU. That might be a little high. I think spread-wise, it'd probably be more like 11 or 12, but I would take the Tigers. And I know we didn't talk any. Look, I'm just not going to talk about Pelicans right now. We will. When we get to full off-season mode, we will talk more Pelicans, but I'm not going to talk about a Pelicans team right now. By the way, got about 5 minutes. If you want to get your comment in, now's the time. We got 5 more minutes. But I do want to tell you real quick more about how Evangeline Securities can help you figure out what your family or privately owned business might be worth and whether it's time to sell. How do they do it? Well, after their complimentary evaluation of your company. If you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians Nick Braden, Ron Hemelt, and the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process from among established private equity funds from around the world. And they will maximize the return process for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities is the top producer on their platform. Very few like them, very few companies like them in this area, and none with their dedication and success. They are fully licensed, ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important the rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. John wants to know if do we have to talk Pelicans? I mean, yeah, I kind of have to at some point. Charles says, maybe talk Pels next year. Well, I will, because it'll probably be 2025 before I really talk about the Pels. Douglas says the Pels aren't worth airtime. This team is a disgrace. Man, has this team ever been in a worse spot than that? Look, they really are, man. Pelicans here in New Orleans, I didn't even know they still had a team. Scratch him off then. You know what I'm talking about. I don't know. Is there going to be snow in Denver tonight? I have no idea. Brian says if it snows, he's in. That was pretty fun last night. Somebody else wrote about the snow in Buffalo last night. It is kind of cool to see that, snow games. Charles wants his money back from subscription to the NBA app on his Roku. I never did it. And I got to say, I'm like, let me put it off for a game. The first game they were on Channel 8, it was free, and I watched it. The second game, I don't remember. I was working or something. Something was going on. Anyway, the first couple of weeks, I didn't even have a chance to do it anyway. And then I'm like, well, they stink. I'm going to have to wait till they get a little bit better. I mean, no offense, and I understand. I haven't got the app. I haven't been able to watch them. And I don't miss them. I can't watch this. Who is Brian? Is Brandon Ingram going to still be on the? They're going to trade him? What are they going to do with man, we got a whole lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to it. Brian says smart move. Not wasting the money on that. We'll see. Anyway, last thing here this morning, or it's afternoon now, but there you see it. Saints 5-point favorite of the Giants. Man, if they could have just found a way to win yesterday, been 5-7 with a chance to go 6-7 at lowly John. Just think about how, again, I still don't think they would have. They still aren't going to the playoffs, but at least it'd have been fun to talk about for one more week. Frustrating, man. Frustrating. All right. How many of you out there, if you have not given us a like, the thumbs up on YouTube today, go ahead and click that like button for me as we go off the air. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube page, what are you waiting for? Now's the time to do it. Please do. Please subscribe to our YouTube page. We're back to our regular schedule every weekday except Tuesday. We'll not be on the air tomorrow, live at 11 a.m. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. You also get a notification when we put shorts. And I know I have been lax with the shorts. I'm going to work on that. We're going to get better with the shorts. I promise. I've been so crazy busy, and I keep agreeing to do these other shows, and I'm trying to build the brand. So I've been spending all the time doing these other shows. And it's kind of hit me like trying to do these shorts. So Douglas says, hopes the Browns wins tonight because he roots for Jameis. So do I. Love his spirit and energy. I've always been a Jameis fan. I'm always going to, hey, man, I'll eat a dub. I'll eat one on the air here. Go Browns. More specifically, nobody cares about my fantasy football team, but I need 75 yards and a touchdown from Cortland Sutton. So that's what I really want to happen tonight. Great show again, says Charles Mangus. I'm making Mondays bearable after a Saints loss. We're trying. The good news is the Falcons lost. They're in a dogfight with the Bucs, who Bucs should have lost to the Panthers. Man, those Panthers are tough and feisty. They are feisty, this Carolina Panthers. Ever since they beat the Saints, they're a different football team. Saints kind of sparked them up. Maybe they'll hire Dennis Allen. I don't know. That is going to wrap it up for us on this Monday. I want to thank today's guest. You were today's guest. Another Mano E Monday. We had a lot of fun. We'll be back on the air on Wednesday at 11 a.m. live. If you can't catch us live, you can always find us here on YouTube. The afterwards, you can watch it after, or if you would rather just listen in the car, you can do that wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. And you can always find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. Everyone have a great week. We will talk more about all this on Wednesday. Maybe we'll start talking about what the future was going to hold. Maybe we'll talk about whatever strikes our fancy. We'll see. It's up to us, right? We'll figure it out on Wednesday. Until then, take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.